And here's WBEV News Director Kevin Haugen.
And welcome into today's community comment. Again, I'm your host, Kevin Haugen. It is my pleasure to welcome into the Daily Dodge TV studio and as well as broadcasting on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Our guest here on the program today, joining me on community comment, is Beaver Dam City Administrator Nathan Thiel. Nathan, thank you so much for coming in.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I hope you haven't gotten sick of us yet so far. Now
Never. I'm appreciative of the work you guys do, keeping the community informed.
Same here with everyone here at City Hall and all the important things that are done there on a regular basis. Again, the Common Council meeting tonight, and we'll hit on a couple of the items that are will be up on the agenda here tonight. So we'll get to that here in just a couple of minutes. But if you are listening or watching on our YouTube page on Daily Dodge TV, again, you can call into the program at 887-9595. Again, the phone number 887-9595, or you can text 885-4446 to get your questions in, and we'll be sure to get to those throughout our program here today on community comments. But I want to dive right into some topics here. We have a lot to get to on our program today, and only a short amount of time to get to those topics, so we'll kind of rapid fire through some of these things. But up first, Nathan, is kind of a recent topic here. The last couple of council meetings. I believe last council meeting was the first reading of this ordinance. Tonight's meeting is the second reading, and that's an annexation of property here just outside the city in the town of Trenton. Obviously, we can't go into too much specifics, but just want to let our viewers and listeners know that essentially Beaver Dam could be adding some more property here into the city.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't know how much detail is needed, but basically some property owners north of town in the town of Trenton have requested to annex into the city. It has somewhat to do with some property that Alliant had been working on to try to recruit development of sorts, and so it appears that they're making progress to the point that they've now requested annexation. It's a fairly large piece of property, about 800 acres, so I can kind of explain the boundaries. You've got A, W, and Hemlock, basically that quadrant of area.
Now, maybe just more of a broader question when it comes to annexing land from the town into the city. Does that at all change the wards or the districts here in Beaver Dam? Does that mean down the road that another conversation will have to take place? And what does that process?
Yeah, so with the annexation that should the council approve it tonight, the people who are within those boundaries, the electors, who they petitioned. It wasn't the city. We're not going out and annexing on our own. It was them requesting it of us. Have been notified that basically they'll be now members of the city of Beaver Dam, and this election will have kind of their own ward and district. Yeah, that was one thing that in talking with Tracy, our clerk, we had made the request or the ask, could we wait to have the annexation take place until after the election, just to eliminate any confusion that might be caused. But I think the petitioners and the parties that are interested in seeing this process go through, they didn't want to delay that. So it takes a little bit more work on our end, and primarily wanting to make sure that everybody's just well aware, and that it will follow a normal process. And so anyway.
Yeah, and so does that involve then the city working closely then, or being in close communication with those property owners who are within that land that's looking to be annexed into the city about, hey, this is kind of some of the things that will be happening in the next couple of weeks, especially with the election coming up. That this is your polling place, the wards that you're in, who's your representation, all those types of things.
Yeah, all things that I'm grateful I have a city clerk. Tracy Farron is amazing. Our deputy clerk Vicki Orth is also a wonderful assistant, and yes, all of that, making sure that those individuals know where to go. To be honest, there are only I think 10, so it's not a huge number. But yes, that will need to be clearly explained, and they'll be aware.
So as you mentioned,
I should say they are aware.
Correct. Yeah. Obviously, at this point, with the second reading happening tonight, a lot of that communication has already taken place, and a lot of them already, like you mentioned, are aware of what to expect and what to do and where to go. Here, as they're going to be potentially part of the city if that's approved tonight. But so you had mentioned that it sounds like it's the land that's looking to be annexed. It's larger in terms of its scale of its area, its density, it's the square footage versus how many homes and people reside in this property.
Right. Gotcha. And there are a few parcels, like I think there's a church up on W that's still within the town of Trenton, and some other areas that are still I gave kind of rough boundaries, but in general it's a good size portion of land, and again, property owners. This was a unanimous petition, and kind of coordinated in concert with Alliant and kind of the advertising of a site for some type of larger development. Okay. So,
in the reasons behind annexing land, they can be a variety of different purposes to do so. Like in this instance, it could be just incorporating property into the city as the petitioners.
Yeah.
Landowners want to do so, and some benefits to get the city, water services, sewer services, a part of that benefit. Otherwise, annexing land for business development and other reasons. So there's different reasons as to why you'd be annexing.
Yeah, often the main driver is to access city utilities. And so in this case, if there's a development that's looking to locate, they're wanting access to water and sewer from the city. And so that's the primary driver typically for annexing into the city.
Another topic that has been...
Kevin, can I say one other thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
There's also an item on the agenda for kind of how it will be zoned. That's always kind of a question, like what type of development? It's
business. There's a couple different classifications that you have.
It's being zoned for light manufacturing, so it's not something that's going to have like this big, huge environmental impact or anything of that nature. And that's about as much as I know. If I knew more, I would be happy. But grateful for good partners like the Beaver Dam Area Development Corporation and Alliant and so forth, and so we'll see.
Yeah, and again, the second reading of that ordinance happening tonight with the Common Council set to meet, I believe, 7:30 is the meeting at City Hall here.
Correct.
In Beaver Dam. Another topic that has been brought up in the last couple of council meetings, and I believe the last time it was discussed, there was a vote taking place, but essentially discussions are still going to be happening. Moving forward, because there needs to be
talking about the city administrator.
Correct. Yeah. So
my favorite topic.
So this has been something that has been sort of bubbling under the surface now for the last couple of months, and we just never had a chance yet to really dive into this topic here on Community Comments. And now it seems to be like a good time to do that. And essentially, and Nathan, I'll let you sort of kind of set some context here, because you most likely will do a better job than I can, but just sort of set the stage for...
Well, we'll see.
Set the stage for us of exactly kind of what brought this topic up to the council and why it's been discussed for the last couple of months.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that if you back up, this topic has been of interest for the city for several decades. Yeah. I think our former mayor, Becky Gluen, really pushed or advocated to have a city administrator, and the council's been discussing this for a while. When they were advertising for the position that I applied for and was appointed, the council at the time, now almost 3 years, right? 2.5 years ago, made a decision that they wanted to wait to do an ordinance until they had the city administrator in place so that they could help guide the discussion.
That's having whoever was hired as a city administrator help and assist to those whatever
Right.
guidelines.
Right. I think with time passage, there's always, kind of growing pains or understanding how things work and continue to build trust and relationships and so forth. And so anyway, tried to assist the council in preparing an ordinance. We've had some turnover and some change, and so basically now there's a little bit of needing to get people caught up to speed and educated. So point is that they've gone through the language, and there's just a little bit more time that I think they need, and a little bit more discussion that the council needs to work through and make sure that it's what they, as representatives of the community, want. So they were able to get through a lot of the material and kind of land where they wanted different powers or authorities to be placed. At the end, there was a little bit of confusion of okay, where did we land exactly? So we've been able to come back at this last meeting on the 9th and kind of regroup over the next couple of weeks. Council members have been invited to reach out to Larry Konopacki, our city attorney, provide some additional guidance or help him understand what their thoughts or any lingering concerns. And the hope is that as soon as we get that feedback, we'll be able to do one last refinement of the ordinance. And then instead of, we brought the ordinance as a whole, taking everything into account and bringing it before them. And it just so happened that it required, because of the way the ordinance was drafted, required a 2/3 vote. And so it fell just short of that. And so, which is good. It allowed for this time to refresh and to regroup and to make sure that everybody's voice was heard. So anyway, long story short, we're going to be doing a little bit of refinement. We're going to be bringing, instead of the ordinance as a whole, we're going to be bringing it in pieces, and then allow them to vote on each piece or each item. And hopefully within a month and a half, we'll have a final version of the administrator ordinance.
And having an administrator ordinance in place isn't something that just is only being discussed or done, because you are in that position or because of you. This is an ordinance that should be in place if you're having an administrator position, correct? In the city.
Technically, they should have probably, looking back, they should have had the ordinance in play before my arrival. There's valid concerns of, well, if the administrator is now writing the ordinance, does he have, ulterior motives and things of that nature, and which I think is a fair comment. I would say from my aspect, I really do care about the community. I want it to succeed. Mm-hmm. But the other piece is looking back, it probably would have been more appropriate for me to have maybe come in as an interim, right, and get it set up. And then at that point, but they should have had, and we should, looking back, vision's always 2020. Yep. Point is, we should have an administrator ordinance. It is important to have it codified, to have the position, because it sets up the way the government is supposed to run and who's on first, right? Whose responsibilities are what within the community.
So it outlines. So does it just outline job descriptions? How hiring and firing practices, and reviews, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Typically, it doesn't get into reviews too much, mm-hmm. but usually you'll have the job description, the kind of the responsibilities, the duties of the city administrator. You'll have how they're appointed, and you'll also have how they're removed. And that's the one difference between a mayor and administrator, right? Is the council has authority to appoint, and they have the authority to remove. Whereas with a mayor, mayor is, they're their own entity. They're elected by the people, and the council just has to deal. And so it really does provide the council more oversight. I think one thing that needs to be clarified, and that has been good education, is learning the difference between what a director of administration does and what a city administrator does. And so just because I have the airwaves, a director of administration is really kind of a chief of staff to the mayor. You still have somebody who is kind of the main point person, who kind of the buck stops with them. And a director of administration is kind of the equivalent to a department head who helps coordinate. Now, moving to a city administrator form of government, you're really saying, okay, mayor, you're not going to be the chief operating officer. Instead, we're going to have an administrator, and for operations, hiring, firing, and things of that nature, the buck stops with them. Yep. And the council still always has authority. If we don't like what he or she is doing, then we go a different direction, right? So, anyways, it's been a good education process, and it's been enjoyable.
No, I think that's. I'm so glad that you spent a few minutes sort of going through the details and explaining kind of the form of government. Essentially, is what Beaver Dam is currently in. And that's a city administrator form of government, because when you kind of hear it on the outside, it might come across a bit confusing. You have you elect your alderperson to the city council for your personal representation for whichever ward you live in, and then you have a mayor that you also elect to oversee the council, and then you have a second individual here with the city administrator who is now in charge. And why are we voting for a mayor if we're having it? So it can get kind of confusing.
And what I will say is Wisconsin, generally speaking, has elected to do the mayor, council, city administrator form. So, but that's not necessarily the most popular form. Generally speaking, you either have a mayoral and a council, or you have a city manager and a council. Across the United States, the council manager form is more popular. Wisconsin's just a little bit more, they like to make sure there's checks and balances, and a little bit more cautious. There are several communities that do have a manager form of government. There's a lot of studies that would promote it, but I may be a little bit biased, so I won't go into it.
Well, we are again talking with Beaver Dam City Administrator Nathan Thiel. Here on Community Comment, the phone number 887-9595. If you have a question for Nathan while he is joining us here today on Community Comment. Next topic we want to spend a few moments talking about. We spent a couple minutes last segment or last Community Comment talking about this event here coming up, I believe this Saturday.
Yes, this Saturday. Yep. For anybody that's wanting to do a bit of community service, it's Protect Our Waterways. They are having a community event here in Beaver Dam, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Basically, we'll meet at Votech Park, and community members will have the opportunity to collect, any trash, debris, rubbish from, stormwater pond, the creek, around the park, with the intent of protecting our waterways, making sure that trash and debris don't get into our water systems.
Now, this is something I believe was done last year. I can't remember the park that it was held at, but it was something that was done last year.
Yeah, it's an annual event. Last year, I believe it was at Waterworks Park. In fact, we had quite a few individuals show up. So I actually, my family and we went to another park along the waterway, and we were picking up trash. We found some pretty interesting items, and so there is a little bit. I say that there's always a competition to who finds the coolest or weirdest piece of trash to make note of it. But if you register, you will get a shirt. So there is a free T-shirt, and then also they'll provide gloves too at the event. Right. So it's a good event, good family event, and again 8 a.m. to 10 a.m.
And that to register, is it you have to head to projectwaterways.com or
Yeah.
testing my memory.
Yeah, and now you're testing mine too. If you go to our Facebook page, there will be a link.
The City of Beaver Dam Facebook page.
But I think it's Protect Wisconsin Waterways,
Gotcha.
and then it's you can navigate through the navigation. It's like the one-day project or 2024 cleanup is the main tab at the top of the website.
I'm going to test your memory again. Is registration open until Friday? Until say, can you register? Say if I forgot to register, but I want to show up and do it. I'm sure they won't. You might just not get a shirt.
Yeah, correct. It's always good to register.
Correct.
I know. I think that you're supposed to register. In fact, you might be right. The registration, they may have had to register by last weekend in order to qualify for the shirt, but. Generally speaking, they're pretty good about having a few extras too as well. I know that my family, we showed up last year. We still got a shirt. So, but I just don't want to commit them. So be aware. But please do register. It's good for them to know who's going to be there.
Again, that's at Votech Park here, the annual waterway cleanup. 8 a.m. To 10 a.m. here in Beaver Dam. And with the few minutes that we have left here on Community Comment, want to spend that time highlighting some construction project updates. I know there's been a lot of road projects happening here in the city of Beaver Dam, but and some projects at a local park as well. And just want to highlight where things are at with those.
So just a couple of things. West Street, that's coming to closure. It was a reconstruction project, water mains, utility mains, and they've rebuilt the street, so that's coming to close. Just a few touch-up pieces. We've got Rotary Park, the wall. If you were aware, the river wall was starting to collapse or fall into the river. So they've removed that wall. They've now started to reconstruct the wall, so it's starting to look good. And then they'll redo kind of a second phase of parking and reconfigure the parking better. So we're excited about that. And then the last and final project that I just highlight is Kellum Road, which with the Generac project that's going in, which is looking pretty awesome, by the way.
It's making a lot of progress.
Yeah,
on
if you haven't driven by there, Kellum Road was being extended, and that paving project is moving forward.
Is there a time frame for when that project will be wrapped up and completed by?
Yeah, so those projects will probably, the Kellum Road will probably start closing up at the end of September. Rotary will probably go to end of October.
Gotcha.
So
And those are kind of the main, because there's a lot of little road projects. Because I know the street maintenance project got underway a little bit ago. That kind of continues throughout the next couple of weeks.
That'll be through the rest of the month. That's kind of your crack sealing and things of that
nature.
Mill
and overlay type of a thing. Yeah.
Smaller projects.
Yeah, nothing like a major gutting and reconstruction and sewer laterals, those types of things. Yeah, that's the summer months are wrapping up, and that's usually a lot of times when those projects get started and worked on. So those things are wrapping up here as we get to fall.
And one other thing, just a PSA, just in general, not to redirect, but elections. Absentee ballots are going to be going out here shortly. I know that gotten a couple of questions, individuals getting emails asking about, are they registered? Just, those emails are not coming from the city or from the state. There are third parties out there that I think are just trying to do their due diligence, making sure that people are registered. If you have questions, you can always contact us. You can also visit myvote.wisconsin.gov. And the only other thing is that as absentee ballots go out, you can either drop them off at the clerk's office, you can stick them in the post, in the mail, or we also do have some secure drop boxes that are in front of City Hall and connected to the building on the backside, which we would recommend that one. They're surveillanced by camera. So anyways, just encourage everyone that wants to vote, please do. Hopefully if you get any weird emails, know that it's not city staff bored with the election. So anyways.
On that note, I want to thank our guest here on Community Comment today. Again, we're joined with Beaver Dam City Administrator Nathan Thiel. Nathan, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Today. And that will do it for today's Community Comment.